Good morning. How are you today? My name's Linda and I'm your trauma recovery coach. I'm live in Brisbane, Australia today, where it's already Monday morning. Welcome. And if you're here for the replay, do a hashtag replay. And if you're here for the live, say g'day so I know that you're here. And welcome. Today I want to talk to you about boundaries. And when we've come out of toxic, dysfunctional, especially generationally dysfunctional, abusive, non-nurturing families, boundaries can be hard to establish. We cannot even know where to begin because, especially when we've been through childhood abuse, we don't know where to start. We don't know what boundaries are because, one, they've never been modelled to us, and two, it's like, what is a boundary? We're used to giving and giving and giving and just, well, as a child, we just did what we were told, and where to from here? Okay, so let's have a look to start off with is, what are boundaries? Where do we begin with them? So boundaries are what we find acceptable and unacceptable in others' behaviour towards us, okay? So first of all, we need to know that we're allowed to find somebody's behaviour and, their attitudes and how they treat us unacceptable. Now, that can be pretty mind-blowing when you've let people walk all over you all your life and not even realised it, okay? So take some time to digest that. So how do we know, or how do we come about becoming aware that either we need boundaries, or we've got to learn more, or we've got to address issues, okay, because we're finding people's behaviour unacceptable. So boundaries are going to come from a healthy sense of self-worth, of valuing ourselves in a way that doesn't depend on other people or their feelings they have towards you, okay? Now, when you first start doing this, you think, oh my goodness, I have to learn to not care about what they think about me, how they feel about me, etc., etc. And that's initially, but then we realise, no, if I value myself and I value my time and I value who I am, then I'm going to be willing to learn to say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going down the same road again, okay? I'm not willing to be somebody that gets railroaded all the time simply because of how other people feel and how other people act. One of the underlying causes of this is fear. I certainly know I came out of my childhood with a lot of fear, which I'd suppressed. Okay, which I kept down because I had to keep going. And then one day it hit me like a freight train that I kept doing all these things because I could see what other people expected of me, as in what they wanted me to do. And then I was afraid that if I said, no, I'm sorry, I can't, especially when I had my own kids, it was really hard to recognise that I needed to say no and stop putting other people's needs before mine and my family's. It's a challenge, okay? Because you can also, if you come out of a dysfunctional childhood, you can also see how other people feel and what's going on emotionally for them. I found that really, really hard to come to terms with and address that I'm not responsible for how they feel. And even today, I had last week, I had one of my siblings lose the plot at me because they feel that I should be responsible for their emotions and their life. And at this stage and age, and they're nearly the same stage and age, no, I'm sorry, I'm not responsible for how you feel and what you're doing with your life. You've got to stand up an adult, okay? So, and psychologically as well, psychologists will tell you this, that if we haven't had things modelled to us as children, it can be twice as hard to be able to learn. We can understand, but then we've got to learn step by step by step as an adult without having had it modelled to us. But we can do it. That's the good news. We can do it. So each of these, so our intellectual worth, emotional worth, physical worth, social worth, and spiritual worth, and boundaries, we have to be able to go, okay, so you're entitled to your own thoughts and opinions, and so am I. Okay? And it actually is a really nice place to come to when you can feel good inside yourself and go, well, yeah, I can see what you're saying and I understand. And I want to be able to have a different opinion. I want to be able to have a different path in life. And that's okay too. All right? And then what happens is you have people will come into your life who respect that and who aren't angry at you because you've chosen to have a different set of values. You've chosen to have different, the word just went straight out, morals. And your boundaries in each of these areas are different to what you were raised with. And this is where we can find it challenging because we think, hang on, I don't want the same morals and values. I don't want my children to grow up how I did. And so unless your family is really good at communicating, there becomes a gap that you feel that you can't cross. And sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. Sometimes you've got to have time out from your family in order that you establish your boundaries. And all of that's okay too. So what happens for us with complex PTSD when we come out of these families where we've not been allowed to have boundaries, so we couldn't ever say no to a parent. Oh my goodness, can you imagine it? If I'd said no to my parents, it's just like, hell had no fury. It just wasn't on. And there was no room for a conversation either. Now, that's okay for them, but that's not what I want for my life. I want to be able to communicate so that we can come to a place where, one, we can mutually understand each other. And look, I do this with my kids who are adults now, and they're great. They'll explain to me how they have a different opinion, they have a different value around something, and it works out that we can still have this beautiful, loving relationship. My daughter has chosen a completely different faith to what I raised her with, and that's okay. That's her journey, but we still love each other and we can still communicate. But when we've come out of a toxic family, we find that when we try to communicate our difference, for me, my parents still have the attitude, well, no, you should still be doing life our way in a manner that we can understand. That's not going to happen for me because I wanted my kids raised differently. And I also tell my kids that, you need to take the good of what I've shown you and then do even better, especially with the internet, and there's so much more information around. So we haven't had the healthy boundaries modelled to us at all, okay? But we can learn what they look like for us by recognising our limits, okay? So when we begin to notice that we're feeling angry, we're feeling discomfort, resentment, frustration over the things that our family, more often than not, or friends expect us to do, then we have to be prepared to sit down and work through it within ourselves and say, look, I'm feeling really ticked off that yet again, I'm the one left picking up the ball, okay? And what do I want to do about it? What are the priorities in my life that I need to address before I go and acquiesce to what everybody else is pulling me towards, all right? Now, it's hard. I'm not going to lie to you at all. It's damn hard to sit down and do this work because we have no framework in our mind as to how we're going to go about this. But what we can do is sit down and say, right, what are my priorities today, and list them out. Can I fit in what this family member wants me to do or not? What's the level of urgency? And so on, and ask the questions. And if you're feeling like you don't want to do this anymore, then you're allowed to say no. You have complete permission to say no. And here's the thing. Now, those the other adults, if you say no, they need to be disciplined enough that it's okay for you to say no. If they're not okay with you saying no, then they need to go and address A, self-discipline, and B, stop expecting you to solve their emotional issues. It's not just, doing something for you. They have an expectation around it. Now, here's why. Because those people in your life who actually understand boundaries and love you for who you are will never expect you to do something ever. So I have friends in my life and they say to me, okay, do you want to do this? Yes. Do you want to do this? No. No thanks. I'm off doing something else. And you know what? They don't love me any less because I have my own boundaries and I have my own life in place. In fact, these people are people that I trust more because they're okay with who I am. Your family, you generally speaking, you find your family want you to be who they want you to be, not who you are. And it's a great big challenge to keep moving in strength. But the thing is, if they're good with communication, you can say, hey, but you're allowed to have boundaries too. Now, they've probably never learnt them either. So, but first you. Now, being assertive, we can plan what we need to say and when we need to say it. We can also let these people know what we need. So when we turn it around and we start looking at what we need, we learn to say things like, well, yeah, Dad, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now because I need to go and address banking, kids at school, etc., etc. These are my needs that I've got to fix first. If you can wait till X time, then I can address what you need or what you've asked me. If not, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it. And it's up to us to leave them as an adult to find their solution. Now, take this and be creative. One person in group asked about another person who was expecting her because she had a particular business to take on her a choice that she made, okay? And I said to her, you have a business, so you just need to say to them, look, I'm sorry, but unless you book in, I'm already full at this time. And that's the truth because they have to allocate time to take new clients on. Now, the hard part is having the courage to step forward and say it. And the first time is the worst. Believe me, the first time I said no, I thought the whole world was going to cave in, that I'd pass out and die. The fear was immense, overwhelming. Felt like I'd get swallowed up. Tears. I'm on the end of the phone at the time. Tears and going, oh my goodness, this is it. This is the end of it for me. But it wasn't. And the thing is, we have to deal not just with how we weren't parented, but we also have to deal with, I'm an adult and I'm learning this now. All right? And the fear that comes up, if I say no to somebody, think about when you were a child. If you thought about saying no to somebody, what were the consequences? And I know for me, there was a lot of unhealthy things that would have happened if I had attempted to say no, be verbal about saying no. Wasn't pleasant. But that's okay. We can recognise that and then we go, right, well now I'm going to adult in this situation and I'm going to say these are my needs and this is what I need to happen. Another thing you can do is do like a bartering. Okay, well, Mum, you need this done, but I need this done. How about we communicate and you help me with this and then I can help you with that. So you can make it an even Stevens. And then one of the hard parts is letting other people know what we need. We're not used to doing that either. And it's really good if we can begin to let other people know what we need instead of assuming that they should know what we need. Can't they see what we need? And I used to have this chronic. I used to think, oh, for goodness sake, think, never verbalise. Can't you see what I need? I'm snowed under here, can't you tell? But of course other people can't because they're off in their own world, in their own life, and that's normal. That's normal, okay? It's up to us to adult and say, this is what I need, and it has to come first because it's time sensitive or for whatever reason. If you're having a challenge with your boundaries, head over into group and we'll be your greatest cheer squad as you do it. Remember, it's hard, but it's doable. It's doable when we break it down step by step. And then when we realise that we're an adult and we're allowed to say no, I give you full permission to say no. Practice it often. And you'll find it becomes a lot easier. Okay, that's it for this morning. Thanks for tuning in. It's great to have you with us. And if you need any help, I'm a trauma recovery coach and I'm more than happy to answer your questions and help you to the best of my ability. Okay, that's it. If you've got a therapist, take the information that you've learnt today and get personalised strategies for the one next step that you need in order to get your boundaries in place. Okay, bye for now and have a gorgeous day or a gorgeous evening wherever you are in the world. Yeah, well done, Wendy. Adulting, yay. Good stuff. Okay, thank you. Bye.